Hey guys and girls, thanks for tuning in to episode 8 of the Elite Strength Podcast with Dean McKillop of Flex Success. Dean is a very high-level coach and a bodybuilding competitor and is a good friend and mentor to me. It was a great chat just about his own journey and how things sort of ended abruptly because of COVID. Hopefully you enjoy the chat as much as I did.
Nutrition, lifestyle, and PED education. This is the Elite Strength Podcast with Aaron Scoffey.
Hi guys and girls, welcome to episode 8 of the Elite Strength Podcast here with a friend and mentor and hobby builder, Mr. Dean McKillop. How are you, good sir?
I am well. Although I'm losing touch on the hobby builder status, mate.
Yeah, I know. Like we were talking about off camera.
Thanks to our friend and mentor.
Yeah, Mr. Joe Jeffrey, just first actual full year worth of prep. How did that feel?
Yeah. It depends who you ask. If you ask me or if you ask Liz. I've actually really enjoyed it, man.
We can ask
I'm a
Liz
routine
after
man. I'm a man of routine, so I quite liked just sort of hitting the repetition button. I also like the athlete mindset, right? Like I really enjoy dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's.
Yep.
So like prep definitely like suits my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always tried to divorce myself from that. That's why I say hobby builder, because I don't want to live the bodybuilder lifestyle where my life revolves around lifting and eating. Like I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, fair.
But I also knew after that last comp, like coming in just at the top end of the weight category, that if I was going to do the next weight category, there's a 10 kilogram like discrepancy there. And like, that's going to require a conceded effort for a conceded amount of time, So hence the hiring of Joe at that time. And then it just became, I suppose, the right time to prep after that push. Yep. We achieved enough muscle growth that I think I could have done well. And here we are, COVID shutting us down again.
So what were you tipped to come on stage at? At what weight were you sort of planning around?
I finished at 7 weeks out at just bordering on 99.9 to 100 kilos, fasted first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. At the end of the week after 5 low days. And then after a high day, I'd probably come in around 101. So there was like a little bit of a glycogen refill, about 1 kilo.
Yep.
My guess was probably like 4-ish kilos off before a load. So say 96 to 97.
Yeah, shit.
Which it would have been like 8 kilos of stage weight, which would have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been pretty damn cool to see, but COVID seems to get everybody.
Yeah. So who knows, mate? I could end up at 100 next time, if there is a next time.
Maybe, if there is. One day, we'll find out. I was going to say, how was it actually going through the whole prep? Because I feel like I read a post that you posted that you actually hadn't really done the whole bodybuilding lifestyle prep for an entire sort of year. It's always been, I'm about ready. I can now start the cut type scenario. Like how did that go for you in terms of, changing it up and having a coach first and foremost, since you are a very good and experienced coach in yourself, doing your own stuff versus having someone else sort of look after you?
It was the least fatiguing prep I've done. No question about that. Like generally, I think like if you asked Liz, like legitimately, like was this my best prep thus far, she would have said yes as well. I don't know if it's a result of doing it again and you just get better at it. Yeah. That's certainly a factor. But I think this time, like because I had a legitimate off season with a legitimate push, I then didn't have to diet quite as hard as what I typically would from a calorie perspective. Joe and I also ended up with more time than we needed to get lean. Yep. So because of that, we could implement like far more frequent breaks. And man, honestly, like to be the body fat that I am now and feel the way that I do has surprised me.
Yeah, cool.
So like I would say within 1% of this is sustainable for me, probably ongoing. Yep. If I can get used to just the bouts and the waves of sometimes fatigue goes up and down.
Yep.
It's not as consistent. But this is easier than what it was being 115.
Yeah, fair.
Like, fuck, I didn't want to walk anywhere when I was 115. So I was just in a constant state of digestion. Like, you know what it's like, man. You have to eat a lot of food. So,
yeah.
So, like I said, I enjoy what people would probably classify as the monotony of repetition. Mm-hmm. I really strive on repetition, consistency, and knowing what to expect with each day that I wake up. I'm not particularly spontaneous or anything like that. So I really like that approach, but I also know that it's a very, very exclusive to other people.
Oh, well, I was about to say,
So.
how did that sort of go, I guess, with Liz? Because I know Liz is quite the opposite in that fact. She likes to get out and
extremely spontaneous.
Yeah, wants to get out and do things just randomly and complete opposite. So how did that sort of plan out for you for the last 52 weeks?
Well, funnily enough, man, we actually did a personality test. I think it was called the 16 trait, something like that. And hers comes back as like the name they give her as a protagonist. And it's like spontaneous, outgoing, like all this stuff, like X amount of percent introvert versus extrovert. And she's to the extrovert, less the introvert. Mine came back in and my name was called a logistician. Like, you make no decisions based on emotion. They're all on logic and fact. And my introvert was 10%. My extrovert was 10%.
10%. 90. Yeah. Right.
So if you got Liz's and put it on a plot and that plotted next to mine, they would just invert.
Yeah. You're literally on opposite ends of the spectrum.
But we're big foodies, like we love to get out and eat food, and albeit with some obviously level of restraint. But
of course,
so that changed a lot because we would sort of just spontaneously like, hey, do you want to go get this? Hey, do you want to go get this? And let's go do this. And whereas even in the push, I was very adamant about saying like, all right, I'm happy to have my free meal on a Saturday, which is not tracked. I'm happy to still have tacos and have that sort of within my calorie limit. And semi-occasionally I'll deviate, but most of the time I'm just going to eat the same food. And I pretty much did that for like 30 weeks straight. Yeah. And then prep came around. And I think it was like 26 weeks out. I did this to one of my clients too. Admittedly, not conscious. I didn't do this deliberately to him and his partner. I was like, hey, you've got 26 weeks. We don't really need 26 weeks, but I think we should start fat loss now, then maybe take a pause in the middle for like 4 to 6 weeks, potentially gain some muscle back and go again. And he was like, sounds good. And I said the same thing to Joe. Yeah. And instead what we ended up just doing was diet for 4 weeks, don't diet for a week. Go back to maintenance, but the maintenance was still as accurately tracked as any other day. Yep. So I was basically in prep from 26 weeks out then too, with no deviation at all.
Man, it's still it ended up looking phenomenal at, what were you, 8 weeks out, 6 weeks out? 7?
Yeah, 7, just 7, I think it was when it officially got called.
So, it kind of sort of worked in your favor either way. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's kind of nice when those sort of plans come together.
We started to find our groove at the end too, man. Like I was literally, so in prep, so from 26 weeks out, it was no free meals, no off-plan meals. Yep. But I would go out for like steak and steamed veggies once a week, maximum. Yep. And if Liz wanted to do sushi, I would do like tuna nigiri, but I'd only have 2 plates. Yep. So that it was within like a tolerable limit of error, right? Yep. And I would take the scales and shit. Yeah. So that was the only deviation that I had. Everything else, I ate the same food. Didn't even change my dinners and shit. But then towards the end, it was kind of like, hey, let's on Thursday nights at least trade out a meal and try and cook that one together. Yep. Cool. So still accurate, but flexible, and I can have full control of what went in my mouth. Finding those little things as like a couple, I think is super important in a prep.
I was going to say, having someone that support too, right, that sort of understands makes a big difference. I was going to ask, do you think, I think I know the answer, but do you think COVID and like being locked down, out of lockdown, in lockdown, and I guess being a little bit more restricted with movement in that aspect helped you stay a lot more regimented? Or do you think even if it was normal everyday life, no COVID, there would have been sort of a similar approach and a lot easier to adhere to, or as easy as it was for you to adhere to?
I reckon the emotional like pain of COVID that people have experienced in Melbourne and Sydney, or New South Wales and Victoria, has probably made the process of even monotony harder. Mm-hmm. Because even just going out to walk is a thing, and to train is a thing, and the burden of money is a thing. Whereas for me here in Queensland, and the fact that I work online and have done for now for like 6 or 7 years, my life didn't change at all. And the Gold Coast has been pretty free outside of 2 lockdowns. And I weirdly somehow managed to get both of the lockdowns here fall on a deload week.
Beautiful.
So I literally did not have COVID interrupt me once.
Perfect.
Maybe not having to say no certainly made it easier, because we couldn't do as much stuff. But I think I was luckier, man, to be honest. I think it probably not too much for me, but definitely for other people, it certainly would have. If for someone, if you have a partner that's used to going out on a Sunday every time, maybe they don't have to worry about saying no anymore. So that's a bit easier.
Yeah, that's totally fair, man. I was going to say, in terms of like your prep now, you're a very experienced coach, competitor. And for those that have, prepped for season B, like yourself, obviously comps cancelled, bar ICN. what, I guess, from your perspective would be your advice as, I guess, a coach and, a competitor, sorry. For those that are wanting to go to season A next year, like there's so many, male and female, obviously a little bit different, but I guess similar premise in that have to have a recovery phase and, all that sort of stuff, and making sure that they're healthy and, coming back. For those, let's say, first-time competitors going to season B this year, is it advisable or is it person dependent, to prep for season A, hold condition, go to season A, put on some fat, go back to a muscle gaining phase, then potentially cut again 20, 26 weeks out? Like, from sort of your perspective, what would you be looking at?
Yeah, I think this one's going to be person dependent and obviously like context dependent. So like all of my clients compete in untested federations. So we have the additional consideration of drug use and
Yes.
like what state are they currently at in both time of exposure and also level of exposure.
Yep.
Now, a testament to the crew at both WBFF and IFBB for pulling the pin this early is that we are lucky in that normally when you finish prep, your fatigue's through the roof, your drug exposure is the highest it's been the longest. There's a whole bunch of accumulated metabolic potential adaptation you have to account for, psychological fatigue, social fatigue, couple fatigue, you name it, right? It's all there.
Yep.
So the first 4 to 8 weeks of that post-comp period is about fixing the shit you broke.
Yes.
Before you can then probably set yourself up to grow again appropriately or efficiently. Pulling comps at 7 weeks out for most people is going to mean that they're basically at the state that they should be at 7 to 8 weeks post-comp in regards to body fat levels, drug status, fatigue level, all that kind of stuff. So you can bunny hop the health phase if you want to go into season A and you go straight into a growth rebound phase. Mm-hmm. So where we may like poo-poo and shit on people that say, oh, you can rebound and get all this lean tissue post-comp. Yeah, you can't until you do the health phase. You can do that. You can do that now. Yeah. But that is, again, person and context dependent in that if they're going to do season A, it's probably a viable option to do that. And if maybe you haven't been taking drugs for longer than 12 to 13 weeks, just to pick an arbitrary number, because you're going to spend at least another, say, 6 to 8 weeks of growing. Yes. Yeah, there's enough time there to not cause too much fatigue, right? Then, you could grow straight away in preparation for the next fat loss phase, then coming into season A next year. Yep. Season A right now was 30 weeks. The other cool thing, they extended. Yep. Yeah, normally shows would be in March and then it would start in February, which would make them 26 weeks and 30 weeks. Now they're 30 and 34.
34, yeah.
If you're 7 weeks out of condition, so long as you don't get too fat in the next 2 months, you could probably start dieting again at like 12 weeks out. Yep. So it means you got like 18 weeks up your sleeve, which means you could easily do an 8-week growth phase, a 10-week maintenance phase, and then a 12-week diet phase. Yeah. And then that maintenance phase of 10 weeks may change 2 to 4 weeks depending on the person. Yeah,
fluctuations. Yeah, for sure.
So I'd say if you're going to do season A, and your drug use time and exposure hasn't been too crazy right now, take the advantage of you've already accumulated some drugs in the system. Mm-hmm. Now they were being used for anti-catabolic pro-cosmetic benefits. Now you can just flick the switch calorically and go into them being pro-anabolic. Exactly right. So win and grow as quick as possible in a controlled overfeeding manner right now, right? Yeah. If you're going to do season B though, mathematically, it makes most sense to me, and this is what I've advised all of my crew to do, to go through the maintenance phase now. Yes. Wash off some fatigue, but try not to put on too much body fat, maybe 1 or 2%. We might be willing to put like, say, 3 to 4% of body weight back on. Mm-hmm. Hold, get rid of all the drugs, make sure your lipids and everything are all in check, get all your bloods done, all that jazz. And then you'll actually have probably like an 18 to 24-week phase you can spend growing. Yeah. Before you then do a maintenance phase and then a fat loss phase, because you've got about 56 weeks right now. Yeah. If they did the growth phase right now, what you'll end up doing is you'll do the growth phase for 8 weeks. You'll then have to spend 10 to 12 weeks fixing all of the shit that you just broke systemically from the drug use. Mm-hmm. And then you'll only ever end up having like an 8-week push phase again. So you're going to end up with these 2 mini 8-week push phases instead of one elongated 16 to 20-week phase where you can probably get a lot more done. Yeah, totally fair. That would be my approach. People could disagree. That's fine.
I mean, it just makes logical sense, right? I guess there's always so many different ways you can go about it, provided the client understands. And the way you've explained it's pretty damn simple. So I can't imagine too many people having a disagreement with it. And if they do, please let me know so I can tell Dean off for fun.
Like what about us on IG?
Yeah, like what about this approach? I'm like, yeah, I mean that works. So what about yourself? Like, what are you sort of doing now? Like, I know you're looking to travel. I know, like we're speaking a little bit off camera, based on the pup and how that's going. First of all, we do have to get into the tattoo, because I remember talking to you about getting tattoos, and you're like, no, I'm never going to get a tattoo, and now he's got a tattoo. You know, completely fair reason. I don't blame you at all, because I would do the exact same. But yeah, tell us about like sort of what your plans are, I guess, now in terms of like physically. Like you've sort of had that, you know, you're at 7 weeks out, and like you just mentioned, for those that are doing season A to potentially hold or whatever it is, or if you're doing season B, you know, go to maintenance and potentially grow. Like, what is it that you're thinking of doing for yourself? Because I know you want to travel, and you know, a lot of different plans are all up in the air due to COVID.
COVID and doggo, you know, like, so for those that don't know me, we've got a dog who's 15 years of age who's battled fucking what we thought was spleen cancer, that had that removed out, and that was fine, and dislocated hips. And then he got diagnosed with kidney failure, stage 1 to 2 last year. They said he won't make it to June. His kidneys have since improved because nutrition intervention. Fuck yeah. You know, PubMed does canine stuff too, guys. And so that was super fucking cool. So like right now we're in the sort of, you know, in, I suppose, like the phase of just being lucky because he's still around, and it's now August. And then just last month we found out he has fucking bladder cancer. So
Jesus.
It's just, he's getting to that age, man. Like, you know, so that one's a weird one. Like the research for it is like, it could be as low as 50 days. It could be as low as high as 300 days, but it's age dependent and response to drug dependent, you know?
Of course.
So we really have no idea.
Yeah.
So he's one thing that like Liz and I have always said, this is regardless of bodybuilding and all the rest of it. Once he's no longer here, we're going to go travel, live off the laptops, see as much of the world as we possibly can in elongated like time frames. So like spend 3 months in one city, become a local, then fuck off and become a local in another city.
Somewhere else.
Months, right?
Cool. Yeah.
COVID obviously is throwing a spanner in the works for that, because that's a little bit harder to do right now. Yes. And then there's Ruben. So I did this whole 50 odd week push with Joe. It's been 55 weeks now. And I put all my heart and soul into it. And I thought that'll be about the right time now. Like Ruben's probably maybe not going to make it to the end of the year. I'll compete. We'll shoot off overseas indefinitely and we'll do it, I think. Yeah. And then because that all got fucking thrown up in the air, I was like, damn, like, I don't know if I'll compete again, because I know how much effort it took to be 115 kilos, and I'm not willing to go backwards. I mean, what bodybuilder is? So I said to Joe, like, oh, let's hang here at maintenance. I'll just sort of wrap my head around what I want to do. And maybe if Ruben passed before the end of the year, maybe I'll even just come overseas and try and do a show with you, because I only want to really compete with my clients and friends here in Australia because it's fun.
Yes.
Or maybe with other friends. And the other people that I would consider that right now would be like the Physique Collective crew. So I thought that'd be fucking cool, like competing in the UK with all those boys.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So I was in maintenance for a week. And then Joe pretty much said to me, hey, dude, the shows that kick off in the UK are good up until November. And then they're no good until about March, April, May next year. And I went, oh, so that's the same as Australia. Yeah. So basically I was like, all right, if I want to compete again, I'm going to have to compete in season A either in Australia or in the UK. And that would be dependent on Ruben.
For sure.
And Liz was like, look, I'd be really disappointed if you didn't compete.
Yeah, I was going to say all that hard work. It's kind of like, I know you're probably a little bit more, what's the word? Not as emotionally invested when it comes to.
I'm a logistician.
You're a logistician. Like you're not as emotionally invested in your own like competitive history. But I mean, even like from an outside perspective, even me, like not disappointed, but it'd be like, oh, like it would have been interesting to see even from like myself, like, you know, 52 weeks, same coach. It's like, fuck, like it would have been cool to see what you could have done, or, you know, where you would have ended up.
Yeah, it's tough because I think I've come close enough to comp being at 7 weeks out that I've seen all of the progression I've made, and I'm really satisfied with it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Going that extra mile is really just the suck and the pain to get up and finish it off, which I also revel in because I don't think a lot of people can get there.
Yeah.
So yes, that was a bummer, but I also am satisfied with what I've achieved, and I think I could walk away from it and be pretty happy.
Yeah.
But like we're here anyway, right now in Australia. We're not going anywhere, and we're also quite limited in what we can do anyway. So I just said to Joe, like, am I wasting time at maintenance now? Like, can I push later or should I push now? And he said, oh, if the optimal scenario was asked of me, which was what I asked of him, he said, I would push now, try and rebound, grow, spend 8 to 10 weeks doing that. And then if you want to make the decision just to hold there, you can. If you want to prep, then you've got plenty of time to do so. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. So poor Joe, man. I check in on a Monday.
Yeah.
I send him my check-in. I'm giving him all my thoughts. I'm like sending this video. he gets back to me and I'm like, actually, what about this? And then he has to pretty much do my check-in again.
Checking all over again. Yeah.
Fucking, I'm like, as the coach, I'm like, I hate people like that.
Yeah. But you know what though? It's like also, I guess from the other side of that, like he loves that shit as well, right? Like,
of course.
Yeah, and like yourself,
well,
like,
he's like this. He's like, ooh.
Yeah, like imagine, yeah. Well, that, and you get to have a high level, really committed competitor, like, and you're just not just a coach, like you're a competitor as well. So it's like you're a client of his. So, and I'm sure you've got clients that are very similar to yourself, and it's just the same thing. It's like, yeah, like you've done this check-in and put this plan in place, but then it's like the client says almost what you want to hear. Like, okay, like I want you to do this, but it's up to you. And then does the opposite. And so it turns around and it's like, well, I want to grow now. You're just like, okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Yeah. And I've already prepped it for you. Here we go. Like, exactly. I knew you were going to do that.
So that's where we're at, man. So as of Tuesday, we pushed food up like another 350 kcal above what we thought my maintenance was. I was actually starting to drop weight again. On Tuesday morning, I was 100.3 or 100.2. So I hadn't moved a bit. If anything, I'd honestly gotten leaner and just a bit fuller. And
not a bad thing.
I could tell I was getting leaner because this is graphic, but as a bodybuilder, you get to a stage when you get lean enough that when you start to wash your ass in the showers, you have to be careful that you don't enter yourself because you slip straight through the cracks, mate. There's like no fat there. You don't realize how much fat is between your ass cheeks. And I was like watching myself. I was like, Jesus, that's fucking getting a little bit risky now.
Yeah, right. you thought it was Lizzie behind you.
Jokes aside. So we've pushed up. My calories are back up now. I imagine we'll probably take a fairly proactive approach over this next 8 to 10 weeks because fat gain is obviously going to be limited by time, and see where we end up, man. This could be quite interesting. Because I've never done I've never done a conscious rebound either because I've always spent the 8 weeks after comp fixing shit, and then the rebound comes later. So it's like, it's a while away. Whereas this is literally like I've gone from almost thinking, if I gain weight, it's bad, and I'm still in that mindset. As of 2 to 3 days ago, I was like, I don't want to gain weight. I just want to like keep getting leaner. Yeah. Like that. I hadn't shifted out because I hadn't finished the goal. Whereas now it's like, if I see weight gain, I'm like, oh, cool. That's what we want.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, how is the mind handling it from, I guess, both the coaching and the client perspective? Because, like you said, you tend to wait that extra 8 weeks post comp and then fix everything, come back. But like we were saying before, you're relatively, I guess, healthy-ish. You don't have to look after that sort of health period. That 8 weeks post show, from a coaching perspective, it's probably easier for you to deal with. But from a client, being the client yourself, how is it that mind is sort of ticking over? Like, how is it, reacting to it? Like trying to overthink what your coach does, and how would you approach it yourself? Like, is it the same? Is it different? You know what I mean? Like, is there a comparison there? Is it, do you agree, disagree?
Well, historically, I've been very good at flicking the switch. So there's prep mode and then there's life mode.
Yes.
So to give context to that, last time I prepped, Liz and I had a holiday booked to Japan 3 weeks later. And I was like, Japan is the world of food. I'm going to love that place. If I go there hungry, I'm in trouble. That's going to be very difficult to navigate. So the moment I finished comp, I was like, I'll enjoy my 2 days of freedom. I won't be a dickhead, but I'll just enjoy it. And then after that, I remember I put my calories up, I think like 1,000 immediately. And I went, I need to get from 89 kilos to like 50% of my weight back ASAP, but in control bands. So I went like 1,000 calories, 1,500 calories up, straight to 95 kilos. And then I just held there. Cool. And then when I got to Japan, like I was still food focused and food still tastes amazing, but I wasn't so beat up. And I imagine this is what you spoke to Austin about, haven't had a chance to listen to, but that sort of post-comp lack of satiety signaling, extreme want for food, and it's fucking brutal when there's no goal at the end, right?
Yeah.
So like I flicked that switch immediately and went, this is what I'm going to do. This prep was super different because I never finished.
Yeah.
So like every time I got on the scale and then saw weight gain, even though I pushed calories up, I was like, I don't really want to see that. And even though I went back to having tacos on the Tuesday night, the night after the concert canceled, like I tracked them within my calories. I allowed for error margin. And I still left 400 calories out of my diet that I didn't eat.
Oh, right.
Because I was like, just to make sure that I haven't overconsumed that yet.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
So like I just really didn't want to overdo my calorie intake. Whereas previously I would have been like, look, if I'm over by 400, what's the global impact of that over a week? Oh, maybe 30 grams of fat. Like, who gives a fuck, you idiot?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not, exactly. It's nothing.
You do it
at
once.
Worry about it. Yeah.
So my mindset was still very like, I need to be meticulous. I need to be overcautious. I need to be concerned with this, and like trying to let that rope out of having some freedom to my life was very difficult. I actually hit like a wave of fatigue that week that I hadn't felt even in prep. Like it was almost like that little bit of extra leanness cooked me a bit more because I just didn't have the end goal of like, oh, this is what happens. You just grind through. Mm-hmm. So I was on more food and I probably felt worse and I got a bit leaner and I was a little bit overcautious. And then, but then the moment that I flicked into this growth phase now, I'd have to say, honestly, I feel normal.
Yeah.
So
cool.
it's, the psychology of it for me is super important. From a coach's perspective, yeah, dude, like I'm like as equally excited about getting the opportunity to take some clients from a prep phase to now doing a 56-week prep again.
Yep.
To the guys that are like, let's rebound at speed and then do season A. You know, I'm nervous about season A still because I think COVID has prepared us all to be nervous no matter what.
Oh, well, that's going to be my next question, but yeah, go on.
You know, which is, it's weird to say because I only chose to do season B because season A went ahead so easily. And I thought, if season A's gone ahead, how could season B not go ahead?
Not go ahead, yeah.
And then
fair.
Here we are, right? Like what the fuck happened? And I would like to say the same about season A next year. Like, how could it possibly not go ahead? You know?
Yeah, famous last words, right?
But I thought that for this one. So I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I think, what do you do?
Well, I was going to ask in terms of not having a definitive answer, like say 12 weeks, 15 weeks out, when, you know, things were looking sketchy for the season B shows, when the shows were cancelled, which is unfortunate, was there a sense of relief in that now you have a final answer if the show was going to run, or were you sort of prepping and you're just like, the show's happening, or, you know, did you have that little bit of doubt as to whether the show would actually run itself, even though it didn't probably impact your way, having your way about your training and your food, in terms of just like the mental side of things? Like, did that weigh you down at all? Did it cause concern?
For me, no. Only up until probably 9 weeks out did I actually consider it not being a possibility that comps would go ahead because of Victoria getting the second lockdown after that week off.
Yep.
And then I was like, oh, like realistically in Australia, although we have multiple states, Victoria, Queensland, and New South Wales are the three biggest in bodybuilding.
Yep.
Perth bring across some athletes, but not a hell of a lot. South Australia is super small and North Queensland is super small. You know, I don't even know if anyone comes from the Northern Territory. I don't even know if people live there. You know, they might. We might have people in that part of Australia.
We haven't forgot Tasmania. We know they don't exist.
Yeah, you know, like they may also have some.
Yeah,
there's a few people there. So I was like, the moment that those two major states have the inability to travel, this is game over. So at 9 weeks out, I was kind of like, if this happens, I'm not surprised. Okay. And I think a lot of my clients were the same. All the conversations that I were having was like, hey, this doesn't look promising, but let's just continue ticking off the daily tasks as we do until we hear further. And credit to Tony and the crews and WBFF, even with Ari, they called it early enough that people didn't have to get into the hole. Yes. So I'd have to commend them on that, man, to be perfectly honest. Like, I understand why they've waited for the years prior to the last minute, because they're also just trying to get the show on for the people that have suffered.
For sure. Like, for those that want to compete. Yeah, 100%.
Plus the money that they would spend. I thought perhaps it may have got delayed. I thought maybe we'll get an all-in-one national show only, delayed till December. I can get on board with that. Like, I'll just take a few weeks off dieting and I'll go again. But when it was cancelled, was there relief? No. Disappointment? Yes. But for me, I was kind of just like, and a lot of my clients were similar, I think, just a little bit like, fuck, that happened.
Yeah.
And then there's this moment of like, now what, you know? Because it wasn't close enough. Well, it was also further enough away that it didn't seem right, you know?
Yeah. That's just it. It's like you said, it was great that they cancelled it, you know, that's 7 to 8 weeks out, because it's the perfect time before, you know, you embraced the hardest probably part of the prep. So that was, you know, great from there. But like you said, for those that hadn't felt completed that last little bit, and then those that were so uncertain if the shows were going to go ahead, because here, like a lot of clients and a lot of friends down here were very, very skeptical, obviously, if the comp was going to go ahead, and that sort of weighed them down a little bit. It's kind of like they felt like they were doing all this work for potentially nothing. So then when they got the date, or when they got the cancellation, like, even though it sucks that they cancelled, they were relieved in that they have a final answer.
Yeah. This is an arsehole thing to say, but selfishly, I'm glad that they cancelled it as opposed to delayed it.
Yep.
Because I think too many people in our industry, coaches and clients included, don't understand truly how long it takes and how much effort it takes to get properly inside out peeled.
Yep.
And what would have happened if they'd have delayed it is that people like myself and people like my clients who are ready on time would have had to have suffered for far longer.
Yep.
Whereas those who think they're going to be ready but won't get given this lifeline of an extra 4 weeks where they're forced to diet for longer and they get leaner than they've ever have because they now realize, oh, fuck, I needed another 4 weeks.
Yeah,
so then they show up in far better condition because they got lucky, not because they did very well.
Yeah.
At least that's my expectation. In saying that, though, they did delay a comp. I think season A may have got delayed a little bit. And it didn't seem to make condition any better. I think people probably just thought, fuck yeah, I got 4 weeks. Let's go eat donuts.
Yeah. Come off their plan for a little bit and realize, whoops, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. So I'm glad they cancelled it because I didn't have to suffer for longer.
Yeah, well, that's a fair call, man. So talking about Flex, how is everything with the business going? So, I probably should have said that at the start, being one half of Flex success. I always sort of skip around. I always go around and come back to whatever it is. But being one half of Flex success, actually the first guys that I worked with, which is kind of fun. How's that all going for you? How's business?
Mate, we were lucky we were COVID prepared being an online business. As you know.
Fair.
Obviously not, we're still a luxury item. So there was a period of time with COVID where it hit us.
Mm-hmm.
But man, right now, Flex is honestly in the best place it's probably ever been in workflow, coaches, team-like congruency, just the sheer joy of working.
Yes.
Like Liz has got a very defined role that she's super happy with. She's now moving more in towards sort of the education to the masses as opposed to the one-on-one space, which she's really thriving in. Her Cut Gain Maintain course finishes up this week for the first one. And she had 42 students, man, off the bat straight away.
Huge.
Just fucking cool as.
Yeah.
And that's so far been a raving success from what I can see. I'm solely just in contest prep and contest prep only. And I love coaching people. I could make more money doing it to the masses, but I don't really love it.
Yeah.
I really like the one-on-one relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually sort of probably taking on a few more numbers than what I typically would and pulling away from some of the other stuff that I was doing. So I can give more to one-on-ones.
Yeah. You've got a little bit more time for it.
Yeah. In a really good, in a place to do more, but not do too much that it's detracting from my service and also my enjoyment of not working all the time.
Yeah. That's totally fair.
And Chelsea and Tom are just absolute fucking rock stars. And we have a team meeting still every Thursday and it's just always such a pleasure to chat to them. They're always super positive. They're really good team players. I think the cool thing about our team right now is that everyone is out for the other person as much, if not more than they are for themselves.
Yes.
As opposed to people that are more so out for themselves. And then that starts to wedge a little bit of a thing, in between. So yeah, man, I love it. The space is great. There's far less stress right now. We're really chill. It's cool to have somebody in America, in Chelsea, she's over there. And then it's cool to have Tom. Tom's here doing med school, man.
Yeah.
he got to move for that, which is cool.
Yeah.
So all in all, man, super, super happy.
Yeah, I had Tom on the podcast. I mean, when this comes out, it'll be last week's episode. So yeah, he's a really, really cool dude, really smart. Kept saying that he's the new science guy of Flex, and it's taken that mantle away from you, bro.
Why not, mate? Man, I actually did a consult with Tom.
Yeah.
I don't even know how long ago. It would have been probably, I'm going to say 24 months ago.
Yep.
And it's always nice when you meet somebody, you go, where are you from? There's something about you I like.
Yeah,
and he did this consult with me on just some general stuff. And then I said to him, mate, I don't know if you ever want to be a coach, but keep an eye out. We might eventually want one. And he was like, well, actually, that was part of this consult. I was like, all right.
Yeah, cool.
And then when we put it out, he was he fucking applied within 5 minutes. I shit you not.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost like he knew what questions we were going to ask. He had them prepared on an A4 page.
Yeah. He's already answered the questions. He just waited for you to open up the applications.
So I knew of Tom beforehand, which was cool. And I had a good experience chatting to him. And then Chelsea came out of nowhere and she was probably one of the best interviewees we had in regards to how well she handled herself and just being aligned personality wise as well with us as a crew and great experience. And she knows what Australians are like because she actually lived here for, I'm going to say 1 or 2 years in the marketing space in Sydney.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah, man, it's a great team. I love it. I wouldn't change a thing right now. I honestly, I feel like we're constantly moving forward.
Yeah, perfect.
But at a speed that we like, in the direction that we like. And we're still very true to what we've always been, which is education comes first and quality comes first, not quantity and numbers,
Yeah. So basically slow and steady, Nice the way to go.
Man, I've said to people, like I've been, area manager at Nutrition Warehouse and manager of staff and all this, and everyone, and now coaching, and like people always ask, like, oh, what do you think? Well, what's the advice to be good at this? And I'm like, just be a good human and help people. Like, if that is your number one mantra, people will like you.
Yep.
And then when people like you, they come to you. And then when they like you, they tell people to come to you. And like, that's what our whole entire business model has been built on. It's just referrals,
Yes.
And I think if you just genuinely love your job and care about the people that are paying you fucking good money too sometimes, to help them out, how could it go wrong?
Yeah, I completely and utterly agree, man. And like I me, I refer everyone to you guys. So
yeah,
if they're not for me, straight to Flex.
Yeah, you just send me the troublesome ones. Let's be honest. That's what everyone does.
Please, says you giving me all the troublesome fucking competitors. It's like, oh, how about this one? I don't want to take this one on. Oh, okay, thanks, bro. Yeah, it goes both ways, dick.
I'm just pushing it down the road.
Yeah, pretty much. I was going to say, how's your, I guess, now that you're taking on more clients and that sort of stuff and only working with really competitors and that sort of thing, how's that sort of business going for you in terms of now and being sort of COVID from just, are there many more people wanting to come on with yourself for competing? Is it, like, has it spiked? Has it gone like increased? Has it decreased in terms of interest and that sort of stuff? Because I know you're usually quite full. But in terms of actual inquiries and that sort of thing, and the bodybuilding side of things, not so much just general population.
Yeah, well, I mean, I only get inquiries for bodybuilders. I don't get. Yeah. That's not true. I had a period where there are obviously a lot of people asking for help, but I said, I'm just doing prep. And then I opened up the composition corner, which is like a semi-private approach that I was taking, where the education and the coaching. Yep. So the education and information was done semi-private, whereas the coaching, like the check-in process, was done privately. But just like a reduced version of it.
Yes.
And that was for anyone that just wanted composition change, hence the name. And like, I really enjoyed it, and I've got some really cool people still in there. But I've let that naturally dwindle because, again, like, I really just want to be able to have like one-on-one relationships with people more so than a shorter sort of thing. So that'll eventually start to sort of filter out as people no longer require me, and I'll just do the one-on-ones.
Yep.
But the one thing that COVID did for me that has actually been a blessing for me actually is that it forced. Normally what I would have in the past, this is just going to be made up numbers, but let's just say I had like 10 competitors for season A. Usually like 50% of them, I'd be like, hey man, like after we've got you through this health phase, you go do the off season, you can just consult with me. And then if you want to do another prep, we can talk about if that's possible. Yes. And then I'd bring on the next 5, then slot them in for the 5 that I already had for season B. And it was just this constant sort of 30-week kind of client regime. And then COVID like forced me to have basically, hey, the next comp available is in 50 weeks. So we now have 12 months to plan for this. Let's fucking really map this shit out. And then here's me sitting there like real coach, like, oh, this is the best. A 52-week plan. We're going to do this here. We're going to do this here. We periodize it all out. Fucking mad. Yeah. And COVID has allowed me to basically have clients now that are like 80 and 90 weeks deep. And I have clients that have done one prep and I'm like, what's the next goal? Like 52 weeks from now? Like, yep, fuck yeah, let's do it. So like now it's difficult for new people because I'm only taking people on when old people leave. Pretty and much, most people, honestly, now 50 to 70 week clients, there's very few that are less than that. There's still a long waiting list sitting there. And like most of those people have said, like at best, it's going to be December because of season B clients. Like,
yes.
And then, but most of the season B guys now, I think, man, I had 15 competitors due to do this, plus myself.
Shit.
And it was going to be a monster time. But I think maybe 2 of those are going to move out and do their own thing.
Yeah, right. So not many spots available.
It's like maybe in December I'll get this, and like, nope, these guys are just going to get awesome. And like the cool thing is I'm just getting legitimate relationship building with the people that are like, to pull on a couple of people, like a client of mine, Jaden. He came on board at like 20 weeks out ish, I'm going to say, to season A this year.
Yep.
And then at 10 weeks out, it was like, that's not going to happen. So we cancelled. Let's move to season B. We've got 35 weeks, He wanted to be a classic competitor. He had to be 88 kilos. He was going to make it, just. I'm like, now we've got 35 weeks to grow.
Yeah.
Then we've got prep. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Now
we've got him up to 100, 112, right?
Yeah, shit. Yep.
And when COVID killed this one, he was 101.
Yes.
And was probably going to get down to like 94 or 95. So 5 to 6 kilos of lean tissue accumulation in less than a year, and no longer can do classic.
Yeah.
And now he's like, well, take 2, that didn't work. Let's do season A. So now we got another 8-week period to try and put more weight on him. And I'm like, cool, man. Like, can we get you to 97? So like, I'm watching this dude just fucking evolve and eat himself basically into a new human over 12 months. And that shit I love, you know? So I've really, really, really enjoyed the deviation into this long-term client that's periodized out for 12 and 24 months. And like, if I can have someone on for 5 years and I can make them 80 kilos to 110, fucking sick. Like,
well, as a coach,
that really
that's kind of
gets my heart rate up.
Yeah, right. It's like as a coach, that's what we kind of like to see, like the progression of someone. Isn't that sort of the point? Like keeping them healthy and helping them achieve the goal that it is they want to achieve, even if you wanted to be classic and you're like, nah, we're going to make you open instead. Don't worry about it.
I didn't say that, just FYI. I said, hey, dude, like, are you in the game of limitation or are you in the game of like seeing what you can get out of yourself here? Obviously, there's a big asterisk here for people. No, I'm not just trying to drug people into monsters. It's like, we do this with a healthier approach, a safer use model, as everyone knows, with yourself as well. And he's like, nah, man, I don't bodybuild to stop bodybuilding, Like,
100%. Get bigger.
What is that, Like, what is this satisfaction you speak of? Yeah. The other thing it's done for me, man, is it just made me realize truly, like, honestly, how much I just love coaching dudes.
Yeah.
There's nothing sexist about it other than the fact that I like to see dudes just get bigger and bigger and bigger. It aligns with my mindset of what I wanted to do.
Yes.
I get a lot of satisfaction out of ensuring that girls prep healthily.
Yes.
And I've got a lot of satisfaction out of even helping girls like fix some relationships around their food. And like, it definitely pains me to say no to girls now, but I'm only coaching the girls that are currently on my roster and then I'm not adding any more.
Okay. Yes.
And then once they've decided that they no longer need me as well, then it'll be just dudes. Just because my influx of guys is probably like a 7-to-2 ratio,
of course. Yeah. Ratio. Well, it makes the most sense because I guess yourself being male, right? And then also like promoting probably a few more male clients that you do have because that's what you predominantly have. It just makes sense that guys are going to align to that more so than females.
Yeah. The other thing too, man, like girls follow girls.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
I've had some like big name girls and I'm like, don't promote me. Like, I don't need it.
Yeah.
And because then it's going to be, then my ratio is going to sway to like 5-to-5 and then it's going to be like 9-to-1 women to men.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've just become a female coach out of nowhere. And like, I think being true to the client, again, like being client-centric focused is that like my greatest passion is in high-end athletes.
Yes.
And then male high-end athletes.
Yeah.
So like I really like the high-end athlete females, but if I really had to pick and choose, it would be just dudes. Getting them as jacked as possible.
100%. Well, I remember
what a meathead.
Typical fucking bro. Now, I remember a while back you had advertised for potentially another coach. Is that something still that you'd look to do now if you're getting female inquiries as well? Like I know that you're sort of very not pedantic, but very particular with if you were going to bring someone onto the business and that sort of stuff. What about having someone to help with the female prep side of things, if that makes sense?
We are 100% burning through cash that we could have made by not having another prep coach. No question.
Yes.
The thing that has stopped me thus far is one, obviously you need to ensure that coach is suitable for the role.
For sure.
And up to the standard that we expect.
Yes.
Which will require some level of mentorship and control and all the rest of it, which I just don't have the time. I didn't have the time to probably put into that.
Yeah, fair.
2, I would really like to have a new coach so that we can mold them, but that comes with a lot more time commitment, which I don't have.
Yes.
And then the other one is like you get a really good coach who's already established. And then does that coach then change the dynamic of the team? And like for me right now, the dynamic of the team is so nice that I don't potentially want to ruin or mess with it.
Yep.
But 100%, dude, I'm giving up cash by not doing it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you have such a big wait list and, you are getting those female inquiries, I mean, like, would it, I guess, not so much hurt, but like, I guess advertising for maybe a more female specific, if you're like the male specific or, the male only prep coach, having a female only prep coach, for example.
Yeah, for sure. We nearly had one a couple of years ago. She does her own thing and she does it exceptionally well. And she would have been an awesome fit. But she kills it on her own too. And this is the other thing too. Like the people that are really good are already doing a very good job.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm still not. I'm definitely not against it. I still probably think eventually I'll need another coach.
Yes.
Specifically for prep.
Yep.
But I'm also cautious too because we don't really want Flex to be a prep company.
Yeah, that's fair as well. Yes.
And this industry's very tough, man, in that it's obviously very visual in regards to like before and afters and pictures of people make a big indent on people's perception of what you provide.
Yes.
And like me having a guy who was 100 kilos and a bit chubby come in at 85 kilos and peeled, that looks pretty fucking exceptional, you know?
Yes.
So they get the most amount of attention. So then people think they're our biggest business. But the reality is we have far more general population clients that are just trying to be healthier, you know, that want to learn how to eat like appropriately to their goals and have a sustainable lifestyle. But you can't show that in a picture. So like,
that's fair. Yeah.
Our greatest work and our greatest impact and our most fulfilling and value driving work is done with people that don't visually represent that very well on social media, which is the world we live in.
Yes.
So I'm also cautious. I don't really want to post a hell of a lot of bodybuilding stuff on Flex either, because
makes complete sense, man. It's totally fair. Yeah. Because I guess that's probably, you're right. The other side to like your business is, you know, you work so much, do so much work with Gen Pop and, you know, really impact lives there. But like you said, how do you represent that visually? Short of maybe a little nice little written blurb from someone.
Absolutely. But then it also needs a sexy fucking picture for people to stop, because people are like Instagram's a game, you know?
Yeah.
So we've actually changed our approach with our Flex page now. I don't know if you've noticed, but we used to do like coaches would post each week. Like they'd be like, I'd do 2 days, Chelsea do 2 days. Now we're actually doing a week at a time so that people get more exposure to like the coach for the
actual coach themselves. Yeah, I have noticed that. That's a nice touch. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And then it really means that like if I post bodybuilding stuff, you're really only seeing it once every 4 weeks as opposed to once every 7 days.
Yep.
So we'll see if that changes things. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? At the end of the day, I guess if you're also going to be, you know, one of the mains at Flex, everyone knows, well, not everyone, but I guess everyone in the industry knows that, you know, you're a very high level like bodybuilder as well as a coach, and only take on prep clients. So you're going to get stuck with mostly prep inquiries, right?
Yeah, like it's an interesting position to be in, because our avatar is like really this flex athlete performance. Because even Tom, you know, Tom's like really keen on hybrid athlete stuff. I'm not sure if you spoke about it, like, you know, the ability to do concurrent sports, which he did himself. Yes. So like, this is a performance avenue, but then we've also got this general population avenue. But then also like flex performance sounds fucking cool, but flex Gen Pop doesn't
have a nice ring to it.
Like maybe there's flex lifestyle or something, you know, like. So we would like to try and find a way to differentiate the two so that people are very clear on like, oh, when you go to Flex Success, you're either going to be an athlete or you're going to be going that route.
Yes.
Whereas most businesses are like, you know, why do you go to Bunnings? Because you want to be you can either be the trader who's actually doing this for a living, or you can try and be the at-home try hard tradie, you know? But we all know it's very clear, you know?
Yeah, man. No, it's a very interesting way to go about it, I guess. So what's your plans for the next sort of 10, 12 weeks? Grow, get jacked.
Get fucking massive, bro. Yeah.
do you have a weight target in mind? Or is it just really don't accumulate fat or too much fat?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Joe's the boss here. So whatever he says, I'll go. I'm an interesting person in that I need to know why, and I need to believe in the person. But I'm also very, very, very keen to impress the people that I'm alongside. I was actually, who was I talking to this about yesterday? Lucky, my client Lucky. He's like, dude, you're younger than me, but I'm still like an excited little kid that wants his dad to be proud of him. You know, like when I tell you I'm doing this and I'm excited, like I'm excited to show you, the younger guy, what I've done. And I'm like, mate, my coach Joe's like fucking 27. He's a kid. You know?
Fucking oath.
And yet I'm still like, when I take my check-in photos, I'm like, wait till I show Joe. He's going to fucking love this. And when he gets excited, I get excited. Because I respect that person, and therefore I want that person to be impressed with what I've done for them, you know?
Yes.
So I'll just do whatever he says, man. Like he says, and I say to my clients, I'll just emotionally divorce from the process, just nail the dailies and see what happens. But my personal expectation, if I was the coach here, would be just to be looking for a steady accumulation of lean tissue with minimal fat over the next 10 weeks. Dependent on status of pharmacology and retention of carbohydrates and all that kind of jazz. It may mean that comes on a bit faster initially, and then it'll probably peter out. But I don't see why I probably couldn't be 105 to 108 kilos by the end of this, but in fairly similar body fat shape. Then hold that, and then consider, like if whatever you want to do happens after that.
Fair. You know? Actually, that is one more question that will stem off that. You wanting to please your coach or make him happy. it's an interesting concept in that a lot of clients want to do that for, their coaches and do things for their coaches in terms of not wanting to disappoint them, which is, I guess, strange concept. Because when I think about it, like one of my clients, the bikini client that I had, and she sort of felt bad in that she's like, I wanted to show your hard work. And I'm like, well, like, it's not on me. You're the one doing the work. I write the numbers, I do the check-ins, you do the work. Like, how do you handle that as a coach? I guess it's an interesting one. Probably one actually I haven't spoken to about, to be honest.
How do I handle what specifically? What do you mean?
Like a client thinking that they've disappointed you or they haven't made you, you know what I mean? Made you happy in that, not even if it wasn't COVID, if they just maybe didn't get a result, for example, if, they didn't come first or second or whatever it is and they didn't place, like, how is it something that you handle?
So interestingly, I was going to say this before, is that I, as a coach, actually now haven't had the opportunity to portray, I suppose, my skill set of getting people lean or helping them facilitate them getting lean for 12 months now, pretty much. Like March, I had a couple that ended up finishing.
Yes.
But like it's since March, right? So it's been now like, we're going to get to the end of this year. It's going to be 12 months before I've had the chance to say, hey, like I can still do what I said I can do, Yeah. So that's been a bit weird. But I think because I set my coaching up a lot on being process focused as opposed to result or outcome focused.
Yes.
I believe this is a James Clear thing. I think it was him. Do you know James Clear? What's his book?
I can't remember the name of the book, but I know everyone references it.
He talks about, I don't think he uses the word process. He uses another similar, but like, being process focused in that, like the success for me from my clients is having the capabilities to week in, week out, tick off the daily requisite, the tasks to achieve the goal,
Yes.
And so long as they're doing that every week, I'm super happy. I'm super excited. I would deem it as a successful week. Yep. If the outcome never eventuates, and the outcome could be winning or it could be competing, I don't care, because we've had 17 successful weeks of an intended 24.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, we've had 17 successful ones. And that one outcome that we didn't make means fuck all to me, realistically.
Yeah.
So for me, I deal with it more so than that, is that most of my clients would probably say, like, it's never really about the end goal. It's always about the weekly goal, and the weekly goal eventuates to the end goal. So then when the end goal becomes, you have an inability to achieve it because of COVID or restrictions or whatever it may be, you never really feel bad, because you've ticked the boxes every week. Every week you've been successful. Every week you've done what you needed to do. So it's like, I've had a fucking awesome prep.
Yes.
And now we're just going to take all of this data and say, all right, put that to the side for a moment. We can use that later on. We've learned a lot of shit. Let's go again.
Yep. Fair.
And I could be lucky in that my clients align with my mindset. Yep. And now my avatar is biased towards the kind of person I get. Probably true.
Yeah.
But I would say that's probably how I deal with it the most. It's a shame that people feel like they're disappointing us. But it's also kind of nice too,
Yeah. Well, I guess I guess they value that highly, that, like you said, like you have that respect for Joe. So it's like the same sort of like thing, right? Like they have that much respect for you as a coach, or, for their coach. They haven't like disappointed them. It's just, you can't help the outcome. You can't help COVID decided to shut everything down.
No. And I think realistically, like, because I'm also process focused, like I'm not disappointed that I didn't get to show what Joe and I have achieved, because, well, most people have seen what I've achieved each week, for one. But two, like, I know that we've done the work each week, and it's kind of like, oh, I know he's now just as excited for the next goal as I am. So it's not like he's disappointed. If anything, he's like, that sucks. Oh, but this one's going to be fun.
Yeah, but exactly. Yeah, realigning and moving over and transitioning into a new goal to give you. And
I think that's honestly capable. That's a possibility for me and for my clients, because we are process focused.
Yes.
If I was so outcome focused that the competition was the most important thing about this year with Joe, the moment that gets taken away from me, I'm now disappointed for an extended period of time, and I have to mourn that loss, and get over it. And then that's potentially when the emotion of it all happens. And I've actually had one client like this. He's gotten far, far better as the years that we've spoken to each other, with his ability to handle the post-comp phase. Yes. But it was like that. A lot of the conversation with him in the last 2 weeks has been, oh man, like ever since the competition's been pulled, I've kind of just felt lost, and I'm emotionally a little bit like broken from it. I just like, I really wanted to do well at that comp, and I really wanted this. And because of that, I've done the following, and I've eaten this. And that was just because he lost his way in understanding that the behaviors that you embarked upon each week is what allowed you to achieve the results from week to week to week, which then would have given you the end goal. But the competition itself doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All we need to do is realign that. Okay, maintain the same behaviors, just reassess the date in which the behaviors need to get you to the intended goal. And then you just go back onto it, So you kind of emotionally divorce yourself from the goal, and you invest in the process.
Yeah.
And if you can invest in the process continues forever.
Yeah, it's like that old saying. Trust the process, for instead invest in the process is probably a nicer way to put it, right? Like, because it does take that investment from the client, like back it.
Yeah, you get it's quite empowering to not be held emotionally, hostage to an end goal. So if we take this if you flip this and think about what not being process focused would be versus being outcome focused for an individual who's in a contest prep.
Yes.
If I'm going to contest prep for 24 weeks, and in order for me to consider my outcome to be successful, I have to be X amount of percent body fat. Let's just pick an arbitrary number and say each skin fold needs to be 3 mil, right? Yep. And I know that when I achieve 3 mil across all 9 sites each, I'm peeled. That's the outcome that I want. Therefore, every time you pinch a piece of skin on your body that is 3 mil or greater, you've failed. The outcome has not been achieved. Therefore, you have not achieved the outcome. Of course, it's not a successful, week.
Yep.
So for 23 weeks, potentially, you're like, fuck.
You're going to fail every time. Yep.
23 weeks, I'm still fat. 22. I'm like, man, that's fucking tough. Yeah. Whereas if we flip it and say, here's the goal, this is roughly how much we need to do each week, we mathematically work out what that's required. Now, what behaviors and tasks do we need to achieve each day in order for that outcome to become eventuated? It's like, I need to eat the following food. I need to do the following steps. I need to concentrate on this amount of recovery, do this amount of training.
Yes.
Tick those 4 boxes, successful day, successful week.
Yep.
End of the week comes in, tick, 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 successful week. Don't even give a fuck about the skin folds, whatever. Next.
Yeah. Do it again next week. Yep. Totally fair. It's a good way to put it, I guess, that, changing that mindset from outcome focused to process focused, and understanding that, hitting those daily and weekly targets is probably going to mean a lot more and have a bigger impact than just focusing on the goal outcome, in the 24, 30 weeks, whatever it is that you're prepping, because it would probably mean that every week up until then, you're probably going to fail until you get to, till you get to that stage. And then you don't have the stage.
But it also gives you multiple opportunities to win each week versus one opportunity to win and lose, Outcome is win or lose. Process is, I have 4 things to do. I did 3 of them perfectly, 1 of them not so much. I still nailed my week realistically, So, and then it's the repetition. Like, there's the other saying I've been using recently to other clients, like relentless repetition is all bodybuilding is.
Yes.
It's having the ability just to relentlessly repeat the same behaviors over and over and over again. And you say to people like, I only gained 100 grams this week. I'm like, okay, not massive, but what if you can do 200 grams for 20 weeks, versus 500 grams every 5th week or 6th week or 7th week, whatever it may be. It's like, how many people do we know after a 20-week push period can get their photos and their scale weight and go, I just gained 10 kilos of tissue or 10 kilos of lean mass on the scale with very little fat. Like 10 kilos is a fucking lot when you look at it 20 weeks later.
Yes.
But it's not so much when you only gain 100 of it each week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a relentless repetition of 100 grams, 100 grams, 100 grams, being satisfied with the process. Then you get to the 20 weeks and you're like, holy fuck, I gained 10 kilos. What happened?
Yeah. Who knew? Yeah. Well, to finish up, my friend, I tend to ask one very simple question that most people seem to get stuck on, which is always fun. 3 Instagram accounts you follow that help you with your day-to-day life, whether it be education, whether it be humor, whether it be mindset, whatever it is. Just 3 Instagram accounts. That's it.
That help me.
Yeah, that seem to benefit your day-to-day life.
Kids getting hurt is for sure one.
Gotcha.
Because if you can't laugh at children getting hurt, you're not a very funny person. That brings me joy.
Yes. This is also coming from a guy that doesn't plan on having kids. So just a heads up.
Mate, I've had the snip, so you're not getting kids out of me.
There you go.
Mum, if you're listening to this one, you've just found out the truth.
Whoops.
She doesn't know yet. I'm like, should I tell her? I don't know. Anyway. That one definitely brings me a laugh. Yep. Oh, shit, man. I'm more of a story follower than I am a account follower.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think about like who I enjoy seeing their stuff from.
I love how much this stumps everybody.
I won't self-promote because, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
I want to get my phone and like look at it now. Like,
it's like, funny how everyone...
Who do I see on a regular basis?
Yeah, everyone gets stumped on this, man.
Oh man, who do I like? Who else do I like? Most of my Instagram, honestly, is me talking to people in my inbox, not really seeking much information off there. Man, yeah, I'm not sure. And that's going to be one of these things where I finish here and I'll be like, hey, what about this one? I know this one.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad that the one that I do know is kids getting
hurt.
Yeah,
I'm concerned. I'm a little.
You know what? The two that came to my mind first was that one and Nature is Metal. I don't know if you've heard of Nature is Metal, but
no, I haven't.
Nature is Metal is fucking. So do you know this, like the saying? Oh, that's so metal.
Yes.
As in METAL. Yeah, like it's hardcore. It's It's basically just nature being metal. Like it's. Like people think we're mean to other humans. It's like, have you ever seen a hyena try and attack an elephant that's walking? Like, now that's not very nice.
Yeah,
it doesn't really provide me much, but it is. I think it does remind me sometimes of the brutalistic nature of life.
Yes,
and how like sometimes just shit's not that bad,
Yep.
Yeah, I've got no. Yeah, you've done me.
Stumped. It's quite funny that the one question seems to just get everybody. It's like 3 people, man. Like, go through your Instagram stories. Like, who do you follow?
You know what's good though is that could be an indication that the people that you talk to are on there having conversations and not on there for education.
Yeah,
which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, probably a good thing too. You'd be surprised though. There are some people there. Like every now and then you jump on and read. Like for instance, like when Joe does a Q&A. So it's like looking at his stories. Yeah, like Coach Kassem.
His is great. Kassem's is great. Alex Tiekels is great.
Yeah.
There's a neuro guy on there that I follow that's great. There's quite a few where I see him and I'm like, hey, this is an awesome information,
Yeah.
But I don't go there specifically for them. So I don't think they're at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, totally fair.
Whereas I could rattle off 50 names of people that I talk to regularly on there,
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. A bit of a difference, but same. Anyway, man. Thanks for jumping on and having a chat.
It's my pleasure, mate. It's been a while coming.
It has been a while coming. I mean, it's been a while to get this fucking podcast going, to be honest, but we got there. But thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for being on.
That's too good. My absolute pleasure.
I will catch up with you soon, I am very sure. Thanks.